We I
really see you guys are trying to improve your format. I'm doing the same thing, so I'm kind of taking notes.
Well, I'll tell you what's helped me, and this is real. This is real. Do you know Hotep Jesus?
I know the name.
Yeah, he's okay. The Hoteps, and both Chad and Nico are Hoteps. They're like anarchy-leaning, conservative, generally blacks, and so generally, and Hotep Jesus.
He's putting his
right on. Get his flag up.
Oh man!
Can he hear you though? Or is he
have microphone?
Okay.
I don't have.
Oh, you have your headphones on. Okay.
He said he wanted to basically improve.
So
we were talking about.
So I got my Eric July autographed backwards shirt. See, there's
Nice.
With the Taxation is Theft. I love this though too, because it's got the snake with the.
Yeah. So I was trying to give Dan a little plug to Hotep Jesus, because he said he was looking to improve content. One of the things that we did was Chad and Nico have been friends with, especially Chad, has been friends with Hotep Jesus for some time. He's a real cool dude. You should check him out.
And Dan knows about him. I saw Dan comment on one of his. He did a video a while back about basically about the revolution is not going to be televised. Like they told you, the revolution is not going to be televised. So if you see it on TV, it's not the revolution. Like it's
I remember that
propaganda. And then you were like, well, he's half right.
Yeah.
And so I was actually going to ask you about that, but we can get into that on the show.
All right.
But you should check out. He just did. Was it Tim Pool?
Yeah, he was on he was on Rogan, and then Tim Pool, and
and the
he's actually debating Lupe Fiasco right now.
Right now,
Literally right now, live.
As soon as this is over with, I'm most definitely hopping over to that.
But we all. He's one of the things that Hotep Jesus does is he does a lot of marketing stuff, and he has helped us kind of fine tune our branding and fine tune some of the shit we're doing. And
a lot of the shit I think Dan is already on top of, because he's already got his shit's been super crispy for a while.
Bro, I know.
The hat is beautiful.
I know.
The flag is beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, there was times when I've said to Adam, man, you need to adopt some of this shit that Dan's doing.
No joke. No. So I will say this: he was one of 4 candidates that I would have voted for. So it was Adam, Behrman, Dan, and then it ultimately ended up being Kanye. But y'all all know the story with that.
I'm not gonna vote for Kanye.
I had my thing. I know you. It's all right.
Yeah, I would have. Kanye's an interesting guy. I was kind of hoping he would actually do really well. But I mean,
he didn't. He started too late. He started too late and didn't have ballot access in 35 states or some shit. 38 states.
I was really
hoping. Also
mention
that the black people hated it and thought it was a troll candidate Harambe or something like that. Taking away. And it's sad,
What were you saying, Dan?
Well, he didn't really know anything about politics, so I could see how they could say that. But at the same time, he could have been okay, you know what? As they say, he's a billionaire, and he literally can't run because the system is designed not to let people in like that. And he could have literally turned that around and said, hey, here's the Libertarian Party. Let me actually have a conversation with them so we can create this center of attention to hey, these people, they're not billionaires, but they actually have some sense about politics and how this whole system works, and bring attention. He could have spent more time in his campaign talking about that. Instead, he was trying to do the government's bullshit paperwork and just fight it as best as it could. And
yeah,
I think that's
can I offer my perspective on that though? The way I look at that is I look a bit less. I see the forensics on like this could have been done better to have 2020 be more impactful or more successful or whatever you want to call it. But I look at it like, so I go back to, because I'm actually a big fan.
Are you recording, Chad?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
Yeah, I've been recording. Yeah. I never stopped actually. Are you still trying to get it open? You don't know how to do the wedding ring trick, or you don't have a ring on?
I'm not one for jewelry.
No, so I'm a big fan of Kanye, and especially like this latest wave where he's like really kind of like he's taking a different like introspective approach to things. But when he talked about like I'm not running for president, did he get it?
Can't get into his goddamn beer.
He still can't get it. I didn't. So like I glanced away for like a second, and then I saw the look on his face, and I didn't know if it hit him in the face or something or what happened. So when he said I'm not running for president, I'm walking. It was like this to me. It was a signal of like I'm gonna kind of like what Adam has said about running. Like I'm gonna do this until like I die or until I win and we dissolve the federal government. And so I kind of looked at it like this was a test run and a dipping his foot into the pool, and he's not stopping. And so like I look at it from the standpoint of that's a great idea, Dan. Let's try to harpoon that whale.
Right.
And have that whale available for 2024 instead of saying he did all this stuff wrong and that was stupid and it was a waste of time because it didn't work out this time. I look at it like the dude is like, he's younger than me. He's probably around your age, like in that like late 30s, early 40s range or something like that. I don't remember how old exactly Kanye is. Maybe like 41, 43, somewhere in that range. There's a whole lot of time. Shit, Biden's about to become president. He's like fucking 80. You know, like
Kamala's about to become president.
Exactly, no doubt.
6 months.
I'm with you. Like that's kind of my prediction too. I give it like 18 max. But
do we
anyway,
have to goose step when they make
this,
her the president? I'm just asking.
Do what? Like have a successor?
Do we have to goose step and then do the salute?
Oh, goose step. Okay. But no. So I actually voted for Kanye West. He was on the ballot in Louisiana. I would not have written him in, but I voted for him, and I have my reasons. And one of those was that there was just some stuff with like the whole way. I felt like you, Behrman, Adam would have all right. You, Behrman, and Adam would have actually
where there's a will, there's a way. What is that?
There you go. Hey, that's a little Leatherman tool. Leatherman tool. Oh, is that toenail clippers? That's what you? I thought it was a Leatherman tool. Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh, see, look, when you're in Mexico, you can do all kinds of shit that's illegal in the U.S.
Right?
No, but no. So like, I thought you, Behrman, and Adam were the three people who could have actually taken advantage and leveraged this opportunity that we had with these two fuckwads running for president. Like that first debate was a massive opportunity to shine the light on the alternatives and say, do you want that crap? Like they couldn't stop stepping on each other, calling each other names. Everybody hated that first debate. Yeah. Like the searches for alternative candidates went through the roof. And where was the LP? And where was the front candidate? Where was
on the second page of Google Army? Where they hide the dead bodies?
Yeah,
I mean,
where was Adam's army?
No,
you know what? I'm going to dive in.
Where was the campaign coming to like shout from the mountaintops of like we are the alternative?
They were at that debate outside, and when the police told them to go, they left.
Right.
That's
exactly. And you know what the difference is?
I don't think you would have left. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think you would have left. I'm certain Adam and Behrman wouldn't have left. Adam and Behrman wouldn't have left, and I don't think you would have left either.
And you know what else?
Conversation.
I gotta dive into this, Dan. If you had been the candidate, and Adam Kokesh said, "I'm going to take a fucking wall of fucking vets."
Yeah.
And go up to this motherfucker and demand, you wouldn't have told him to stay the fuck home. And that is
that's what they told
bullshit,
him.
and that's why I stayed the fuck home.
Really? They told it he wanted to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was his whole. You don't remember?
He
That was
publicly
his campaign, and then he offered the Jorgensen campaign to do.
No. I didn't know that he offered it to Joe.
Yes.
It was on air
Because
on
that's-
Adam versus the Man.
Because that was, I mean, like, this is how I always envisioned it, right? Like we'd go in, like Behrman would create a distraction somewhere, and then like we'd do something somewhere else, and like we'd do something sneaky to get somebody like, so like Joe's like maybe
it was
like
a Dungeons
in the
and
audience.
Dragons fight. Like you needed like
Yeah.
you needed somebody over here. You needed an archer over here shooting arrows at him. You needed somebody over here casting spells.
She's gonna get up to go to the bathroom and then just bolt for the stage.
Right, exactly. Right,
Sure.
like you needed to like break out the toolbox. What do we have
security
in here?
badges?
Exactly.
Oh man.
Like,
But
I mean,
but my
show the
point
system
is,
for what it is, and that was like this particular election was a massive missed opportunity, in my opinion, from what I saw, and that's
was the
why I
last
voted.
one, man. The last
That's why I
one.
voted. No, I know, but I'm saying for like specifically this one because of the shit show that it was. They weren't. We didn't even get the
Just
polite
wait.
first debate. Well, okay, but I'm saying we didn't even get the polite first debate, right? Like
Right.
we didn't even get that like all about these talking points and all that stuff. No, it was an absolute shit show to a man. Everybody knew it. Everybody saw it. And where was the LP? Like you said, going the other way when the cops told him to, which is the opposite of what we're supposed to be showing as an example. And that's why I voted for Kanye West. I was like, you know what? Like, I will protest. We're about protest votes,
Right. It's still a protest vote.
Man. This is a protest vote too, goddammit. And I'm going to tell y'all that, like, I'm a delegate to the goddamn National Convention, 2 conventions running, one of 1,000 in the country that's a delegate to the convention. I went in person to both conventions in New Orleans and Orlando. Okay? I've only been in the LP since December of 2017. Okay? I did not vote for the Libertarian presidential candidate. Not because I don't like Jo Jorgensen and I don't think she's a nice person and that she's not libertarian, but if you're going to fuck up the best opportunity you've had in a long time to actually gain traction like that, I'm going to go for the guy who's like trying to figure this shit out for the first time. And goddamn, he's still like, 60,000 votes doesn't seem like much, but
that's a lot in that short period of time.
He hardly campaigned.
Let me just say, yeah, for somebody without a party as an independent.
Right, no
Let me
party,
just say,
no campaign,
if it weren't for you and all those people who voted for Trump, then Joe totally would have won, and you stole the election from her.
No, right. So I've made the argument that I have 4 votes. So I voted for Kanye, which means I voted for Trump, and I voted for Kanye, and I also voted for Joe Biden, but because we have all these extra votes that are being tabulated and everything else, I just gave myself another one because I voted for myself too. So I counted as I have
for
a
bottle of beer that I set back on my fucking couch. I said, "Fuck this shit."
So they're saying like there's more votes than there are registered voters, but now it totally makes sense because everyone who voted for Joe also voted for Biden or Trump.
Or for Kanye, or for the Green Party.
So that's where the extra votes came
else.
from. It all makes sense now.
That's exactly right.
That's
So-
Common Core.
Yeah. So Dan, what all of this boils down to is I'm glad to hear you say that you are going to run for president again. And let's be clear, Adam hasn't announced, and and neither has Behrman. And
I thought he has.
no, he is not going to officially announce for some time now. And I'm still doing his stuff for Adam versus the Man, so I'm pretty sure I'd know. But he hasn't officially announced yet. I'm sure that I know that he's weighing some options to running for other offices. And Adam and I are friends, and beyond that friendship, though, I 100% agree with him. Though how you got me, your conversation with Adam about what you would do, how getting rid of taxation would cause the system to start falling apart. That's what did it for me. That's what put me on your team, man. I was like, yeah, because I'm an anarchist. You know, for me, I want to get rid of the state.
Hashtag me too.
Right. So, but I like hearing that because one, again, it comes down to we're on the same team. And if we're, you know, on the same team or what have you, even though Indiana's pretty much told me to take my fucking bags and leave because these people can't stand voluntarists, but and literally made it. I tried to run for because I've got a degree in funeral service. I tried to run for coroner in my county, and the LP is the reason I wasn't on the ballot, because the person who was in charge, we all were sitting there. I filled out my paperwork. This person who was a high-ranking member of the, let's just say in the LNC, said, I will take your paperwork in and make sure it gets filed correctly to me directly with witnesses, and it never made it into the office. My fault. I should have done it myself, but they don't like voluntarists. But at the end of the day,
Pragmatic enough, apparently.
Right. If we are on the same team, Dan, you're on our squad. Like that, for me, this is, you know, within the team, we're on the same core of that. And so I want to see you be as successful as you possibly can, because I think your message not only doesn't make sense, it also hits at that solutionary, let's get to the root of the problem kind of solve. So I'd like you to kind of tell us what you envision going forward, what your next campaign will look like.
Well, before I get to 2024, I'm actually already running for governor in Texas. So we've got a 2022 campaign running.
Fuck you.
And it's interesting because I kind of need to refocus a few things, because what you can do as governor of Texas is obviously different than what you could do as president, or what the government of Texas can do is different than what the government of the United States would do. But a lot of it actually comes down to some 10th Amendment type shit where it's like, hey, sorry guys, no FBI, no CIA, no NSA, no IRS in the state of Texas, no ATF. You guys are gone. You don't have a right to operate.
What happened to the loose collection of states, right? Somehow we became a giant collective that we are indivisible.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Right, exactly.
Right. For sure.
Oh shit.
It's really interesting, but at the same time, like, I still want to focus on that whole idea of we need to get people back to we need to build that solid foundation for people. And I think that that really resonates with people, because most people, they're like, oh, this guy wants to get rid of the government. That's so weird. Like, that's never going to happen. And so like it becomes like almost like when that's your main priority, it's kind of like, well, you lose a lot of audience. But I think at the same time, if you, and this goes back to like, talking to people from like what their actual needs are, right? If you talk to people about like, okay, look, you need some source of income. You need a roof over your head. You need food in your stomach. You need to support your family, all these things. I want to make it so that you can do that so much more easily, working so many fewer hours, and with a better quality of life. Yeah. I want you to be able to afford your health care. I want you to be able to afford food. I want you to be able to take time off and take vacations and have money saved and own your own home and all these other things. And that's really what resonates with a lot of people more than, let's get rid of the government. At the same time, you can actually get there by getting rid of the government. So, or at least reducing its size. So, who said it? I think it was like Thomas Jefferson who said the government should be so small that you don't even know it exists, or something like that.
Well, and you've kind of, so like, back to the thing about like you, Behrman, Adam, like one of the other things that draws me to you guys is that when it comes to this idea of actually like living that, you guys are actually doing it in your own ways, But Vermin does his thing with like more of like a kind of a public, theater sort of, like I'm going to make a mockery of this thing with like my free ponies offer and a boot on my head and all this stuff, and so much of the other stuff that he does great work that way. Adam has his property where he's building his own little country within the borders of Arizona and everything, and basically disconnecting himself from that. And then you've done what you've done, and so living that, in a way you are going through the process step by step of getting rid of the government in your life, right?
Yeah.
And so like from that standpoint, that's one of the things I appreciate, is that you kind of offer that, like, well, look, yeah, like you can do this stuff without this stuff. Like there are things you can actually accomplish without having to have these tethers tied to you.
One of the things that people levy it all the time, giving us shit because they're like, you're supporting, voting is violence and you shouldn't vote and all this other nonsense. The thing is, do I think that that the Libertarian Party is going to be the gateway to liberating the world? The answer to that is no, I fucking don't. But you got to start somewhere. You got to get those ideas put into people's
trying to kill Dan's career as a libertarian candidate, man.
All right. You got.
I
you got
talk shit about him all the time.
Okay, good.
Right.
All right. Yeah,
So you got to get these ideas out in front of people. And
it's tough love, right?
Right, and it is. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We are never going to vote ourselves into freedom. Sure,
right.
the process that might get us there eventually is everybody says, all right, let's take a vote. How about the government's gone? All right, everybody says government's gone. That might be the process that we get there, but that's never going to be how we actually get there. It comes down to what Rothbard talked about, in that it has to be people in mass deciding that this is just another band of burglars.
Well, otherwise you're just one election away from being back in bondage again.
Right.
If you can vote that's freedom for yourself, then all it takes is one more election cycle and you're voted right back into bondage. Right. So you better have the spirit and the culture and the mentality to withstand that and to keep it going, to sustain it.
Hey, I wanted to touch up on the topic before we completely forget about it, or I completely forget about it. About what Dan was speaking on earlier today about how there was like a raid. I caught like or something along the lines of it. I didn't really go in depth with it, but hopefully you could.
There were okay. So the gentleman that I had on my show, Blake, his mother has a dance studio that she operates out of her house, and they had a health department official show up who admitted she was a former cop, and basically they were she said she was there to educate them because they weren't enforcing the mask mandate, and they didn't really explain what that was. But Blake was there explaining, and at some point they were like, we're not going to talk to you. We're here to talk to her because it's her business. And, they were threatened by an individual who knew their rights. But he was basically like, what are these papers? Like, what do you want us to do with these? Like, are you here to serve a warrant? Are you here to arrest somebody? Are you here to find somebody? Because if you're not, you can just leave. And it was interesting that he told her, you're basically here to threaten us. Like, we have to comply or else it's going to get escalated. And they had this like stack of papers that was complaints. And in order for the government to get a warrant against you, they have to have a complaint, right? They have to have under oath and affirmation by an accuser that something happened. And, if somebody's robbing your house, they don't like go to the court and get a warrant and everything else. They come and they show up like, oh, somebody said immediately right now somebody's robbing a house. Let's sort this out. But in this particular case, they had these papers which were supposedly claims by his customers who were pissed off that he wasn't enforcing the mask mandate. And none of them had names or anything else on it.
course.
And it was interesting because as we were talking about this, I was like, wait, they didn't have names on it even? So they're telling you these are your customers, but they don't have names on them. Could it be that they are actually using fraudulent information, fraudulent documents that they just wrote up to intimidate and coerce you into following some mandate that you don't need to follow? And if so, can you sue them? Because they are committing a crime. Like, so we're actually going to be looking into that, but that's just it's fucking nuts. But
ultimately, though, that happens so often, you know, that you know, when you think about like even like all of this really comes down to compliance. Do you comply or do you resist? And you don't, and when you say resist, you don't, people get all worked up because, you know, I'm not a pacifist, but I'm pretty damn close. You know, I really just believe in defense. I do not believe I'm 100% in compliance with the non-aggression principle. And I really believe that there is a peaceful way. But when you say resist, that doesn't necessarily mean pick up a baseball bat or a gun.
Right.
Resist can be, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm going to sit down.
There's a line. I just drew a line on the ground. You crossed it. Just take a step back.
Right. Well, and I think what's always interesting to me, because I tweeted something out today. There was this, it was in Canada. I think this guy has like a barbecue restaurant. And he was like, fuck the mandate, I'm opening at 11 a.m. And this reporter posted that she was going to basically rat on him. She had already snitched to law enforcement, and they were going too. And I'm like, they are so terrified that they want front row seats. You know, some heroes don't wear capes. And that's what just drives me nuts about this whole thing. Like, I'm not trying to talk about like how real or how embellished or anything like that all this shit is or anything like that, but goddamn, like if you're so scared that this is murdering everybody if you don't wear a mask, why the fuck are you showing up at people's businesses to go harass them? Stay the fuck home. Stay the fuck at the police at the precinct and leave them the fuck alone and let their customers go if they want to go and not go if they don't want to go. God damn, I don't understand it. Like, but it tells you a lot, and it also says a lot about how naive and stupid people are, that people drink this stuff up and they don't even like think beyond like, okay, so there's a deadly virus that's going to kill you if you go near it. So go near it to tell people they aren't doing something that they're supposed to be doing. Really?
If they catch it, they're going to be like, and it's all his fault because he wasn't wearing a mask and he opened his business.
Right. Exactly. And so I'm just like, oh my God, you people are so fucking retarded. I don't have the patience in me to go out in public to a lot of places. And yet here I am. I have to travel for a living, and I'm in like Michigan and Texas and I'm all over the place. So what part of, you were in San Antonio, weren't you, when you were around that area? Okay. Yeah, I go mostly to like East Texas. I'm in Louisiana, so I'm driving like 3 hours and back most of the time. But
I made the drive a couple times.
So can you answer the question about the LLC thing? Because I'm
So
like, how did you extract yourself from that and get into like what do you do? What does it look like now? What do you do now instead?
I've had an LLC for a while, and it's actually just expired at the end of October because I didn't renew it.
Okay.
But like I've had this idea for a long time that was like, okay, like how could you, like what's the benefit of this to me? It's limited liability. Okay, well that's still a good thing.
Sounds like a Trojan horse too. It sounds like a Trojan horse, like all the other stuff, the Affordable Care Act, the Patriot Act,
right?
Limited liability company,
the Paperclip Act.
What are you incorporating?
Right.
Like incorporating is like, what are you incorporating? Oh, I'm incorporating the government into my business. So it is a Trojan horse. It's like, oh, now I'm a corporation. Now the government has total control over things that I can do because I'm no longer an individual with freedom of speech. They can now regulate the things that my corporation can say. Oh, you want to be a nonprofit? You want to, get special tax exemptions for your donors and be a nonprofit? Okay. But you can't say certain things. You can't endorse political candidates. You can't do this and that with your money.
Okay.
So why not say, well, fuck all that. Everything that I do right now, I'm claiming is free speech. So my business is not really a business. I'm selling things to raise money to make my free speech louder. So this is a free speech organization. Will it hold up in court? Man. Will I be charged? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But it's not for me to make a profit. It's there so I can raise money so that I can spread the word about how much the government sucks. Now, of course, the government's not going to like that. But so I'm like, okay, how can I? The one thing that I like about this is limited liability, because I don't want to get sued for everything I have. And this is the fear, right? This is like the number one selling point. They tell you, oh, you should incorporate your business. You're going to be protected against blah, 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 blah. And they put you like, there was this libertarian on Twitter who really got into it because she actually, for a while, she explained that her job was to help people incorporate and help do their taxes. And I'm like, you're doing the government's bidding. So for you to say that it's bad advice for me to tell people not to get incorporated is like, you're like, and not to put any blame on her. Right. That's the mindset that that's the understanding that she's in. And she's like, yeah, but there's benefits. And I'm like, yeah, but there's free cheese and a mousetrap, right? So, so I'm like, okay, but there's limited liability. And I'm like, okay, eBay, for example, has limited liability clauses into their terms and conditions, right? So by becoming a customer of eBay, you click I agree, which is like 50 million pages of legal bullshit,
right?
Which says you can't sue eBay. And it's like, okay, so what if they were not a corporation?
Yeah,
and you still press agree.
Right.
You still can't sue eBay. And really, like, okay, so there's this idea, right?
Yeah, and so for something like that holds up, because I've heard like people talk about like, what if I'm signing away my firstborn, or like, and most courts would hold like, okay, like that's like unreasonable, but like there's some other stuff that like we can say like, yeah, it's not unreasonable for them to say like, hey, if you buy some shit you didn't, that you thought was one thing, and then the customer gave you something else, that's on you and that customer, and you can't sue eBay, so that's reasonable. We're not gonna, but like obviously we're not gonna say that if eBay says you owe us your house in the terms and conditions, that you owe eBay your house, so that's unreasonable. So we'll throw that out. Like, right. And so that's where, so those terms of service, terms and conditions, whatever. That's what's getting a lot of people banned from YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and everything now. But it actually is what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, right? So if you have a corporation, you're also granted other limited liabilities, like, holy shit, we got these massive spiders over here. There's someone crawl across the floor. They're like, I think they're called wolf spiders. I'm like in the middle of the jungle.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, so that'll put you down. That will put you down.
They're probably non-venomous, I think.
Yeah, no, they aren't. They eat the
eat the smaller insects
stuff around here. Yeah. So okay, I got distracted.
So you're talking about a corporation and
right.
Yeah.
So what else does a corporation protect you from? Limited liability, right? Well, there's let's say you own a company that owns a truck, and that truck like carries oil, and it, something happens and it leaks all the oil and it goes out into a lake. Your corporation is now responsible for that damage.
You as an individual are not.
You as an individual are not, because it's a separate entity. Now, at the same time, so you have this limited liability. There's no contract with, let's say it's a private lake. There's no contract between your business and the private lake to limit liability, right? So now the question is like, oh, well, if there's no LLC or corporation, who did the truck belong to? Oh, well, it belonged to whoever it was registered under, and that person is going to be held responsible. Now, yes, that's a potential cause, but there's an actual damage that occurred. So at the same time, the guy who owns the lake, somebody's got to pay to clean this shit up. And if you want to sit there and hide behind your corporation, isn't that kind of
right.
bullshit? Because what a lot of people do with their corporations is they take all their money out. So if their corporation ever gets sued, they're just like, whatever. They can walk away from it and start another one. That's what Trump does. That's why he's yeah.
Right.
All his bankruptcy things, that's just to eliminate debt that he owed, and he starts a new corporation. He wasn't losing. He wasn't like broke. He wasn't like giving up. Exactly. And so I would argue that this is an illegitimate form of limited liability, and one that I do not need for myself. Because I choose to take personal responsibility for all of my actions. Now, if let's say I tell my employees to take certain precautions, and so that things like that don't happen, and an employee does not follow those, well, then he might be held responsible for that, because that was him not following directions. There's all kinds of different ways to look at this, and ultimately we have to consider that in life, even if there's a corporation, even if there's an individual, it doesn't matter. You can't squeeze juice out of a rock, right? So like, you can sue as much as you want. If there's no money there, it doesn't matter. And so I see these as illegitimate forms of protection. Now, at the same time, it would be nice if the government recognized, let's say, for example, there's another person named Dan Behrman somewhere in the world, and he does something to somebody in New York.
Taxationist theft, Behrman, though.
Right. And he gets sued, and he loses, and the court's like, okay, well, you won a case against Dan Behrman. You can now take all of his assets. And then they come to me and say, we want your house. Well, I'm not the same guy, right? So what's the differentiating factor there, right? No court is going to say, yeah, you can take his stuff, because it says right here on the paper, anything that belongs to Dan Behrman. They're going to be like, no, but that's a different Dan Behrman, right? So there is some legal restriction to who owns what and who's responsible for certain things. There's also ways to protect your assets by putting them into trusts, which is a government contract, but at least it's not the contract on your business, so that they have access to tell you how to run your business. Anyways, point is, I'm rambling now. All these different limited liability things you can write into a contract and make this contract with your people. And what I want to do with this is I want to create kind of like the Creative Commons contract, or like the software licenses, where like they have like a Berkeley license or whatever. And so all you have to do is say, I'm releasing this software under the Berkeley license. You don't have to talk to a lawyer or anything else, but everybody knows what the Berkeley license is. And so now that software is available, or Creative Commons version 4.0, and everybody knows that they can use your artwork as long as they give you credit, that sort of thing. I want a contract that's like that for an LLC, so that I can say, by doing business with me, you agree by the terms of the public LLC, whatever, and you agree that you cannot sue me for anything that's in my name. You can only sue me for things that are in the business name. And so maybe I create a bank account that's under the name of the business. And maybe I create some system like that. That's totally legitimate. And I think if we start looking at it this way, we can understand that the government we don't need the government to create these limited liability businesses.
Right. To kind of insulate your person from, because for a while I was doing video work, and one of the things that I was always concerned about was like, people wanted me to do weddings, and I was like, man, I don't know, like that's one of those, like, it happens once, well, I mean, you only marry the same person once technically, but like some people get married a bunch of times, but anyway. But like, I'm not sitting there. I know how crazy women are about weddings and shit like that. I'm not putting myself on like, where it's basically live TV. And if you fuck something up, that's it. And you ruined their memory. And, and then they're like, I'm going to sue you for whatever or something like that. And all I'm doing is I'm shooting video. Like, I'm not even driving an oil truck that can spill and pollute your lake.
Right.
I don't want to have my house and my livelihood taken away from me because you were mad that you didn't have the perfect, textbook storybook, whatever, wedding video or whatever, or something like that.
Right.
And so even with that, I was considering like LLC type thing for that reason, because I was worried, like, what if they come after me instead of just trying to take my camera or a computer or something like that. But so that, and
here's what's interesting about
an
that.
independent way to like insulate yourself that way would be.
There's already somewhat of a system in place for that. So for example, if you went to them and said, "Hi, I'm Chad, I'm a wedding photographer, hire me," and they said, "Okay," and they were like, "This is terrible, we're going to sue you," they would be suing you personally. Even if you had an LLC, they'd be suing you personally, and your LLC would not protect you. Why? Because you introduce yourself as Chad. Unless you give them an invoice saying Wedding Photography Inc., so that they know it's a corporation. And even if it says Chad Wedding Photography but doesn't say Inc., they could argue, well, I didn't know he was a corporation. I thought he was an individual. And I saw that he had plenty of assets, so therefore I was ensured that he would produce great quality, or I'd be able to sue him for everything he had. And they would be able to take your personal assets. So you literally have to put your customers on notice that you are a corporation in order to get that protection.
Okay.
And so how is that any different
even if you're incorporated?
Yeah. If you don't put the name of the business,
it's really not. Yeah.
So why not, instead of putting Wedding Photography Inc., why not put Wedding Photography and then, public LLC, whatever,
right,
terms that like they can go read a different thing? Then why shouldn't that grant the same protection?
Right.
Because they're getting notice, they're agreeing to the terms, and that's that.
Yeah, and they're already doing that. I can't really give the particulars of what I do for a living, but when someone makes a payment to the company that I work for, they don't actually make a payment to the company. They go to a company that takes the payments from my company, and that payment place, when we're talking to people, we don't say, well, here's all your terms and conditions. We say, if you want to know, this is our contract with you. If you want to know what the terms and conditions are, you can go here. And if you go here, you can read all the things. Now I'll wait for it if you want to, and I'll wait. But if not, you can say yes right now, and we can go ahead and go forward with this. And so we're already doing that to a degree. I realize that the company I work for is a company that is backed up by the coercion of the government, but we're already doing it. And this really does, again, come back to and Rothbard is just a goddamn genius. There is nothing under the sun that the government does that hasn't been done better, and I'm misquoting, but this is more or less what he said, that hasn't been done better by private individuals. That is a fact. That has, I can't think of anything. But what you're proposing, Dan, is going back really to the past. When I did my article on libertarian environmentalism for Adam, probably about 2 years ago, one of the things that I learned at that time was that it used to be that, like, air law and water law and all that crap used to be, that was just it's the same. If you're dumping trash on somebody's property, doesn't matter if you throw it through the air and you put it in the water, it's somebody's property. That's the way it used to be. All of these things have been developed over time to benefit those in power. And so what you're talking about is actually going back to a simpler and more efficient way of looking at law, to where you write a contract, you get two people. It's like what Spooner talks about when he's talking about the Constitution. I didn't sign shit. It's not a real contract unless you make a signature. Now,
which is why, like Dan was saying, you've got to get those people to sign shit that you tell them they have to sign it.
Right.
In order to continue, and he's like, no, I'm not going to sign it. How's that?
Right. Right. But
why do you need me to sign this shit? I don't want to sign it.
But then if you're being forced to to sign it, and you're not going to get what you want if you don't sign it, you're being coerced. You're being forced into something, and you have made a choice to not. That's when it becomes voluntary.
I'm just like, as you're talking about the signature thing, I'm just like, I'm picturing. So the next time they ask me to sign something, I'm just gonna say, okay, you know what? And like this is how terrible. So I'm gonna write "fuck off," and I'm like trying to picture in my head, how the fuck do you write a cursive F?
So it's like this, and then you put a little thing over there.
A little loop.
It has been a while.
Upside down.
Look, hey, you and me both. Like I started printing everything in 8th grade, and then I went to like all caps in high school because I was in we had the school that I went to I took 2 years of architecture in high school, and you had to letter everything, and so you had to like write everything in all caps with like a larger cap and then smaller caps for the lowercase numbers, letters. And so like I've gotten to the point now where apart from my name, and when I have to like we bought a house in May, and man, I wish we had this conversation before then, but I don't know. I probably still would have done it. I mean, like my mother-in-law was involved. There's all kind of other stuff. So like I had to kind of go the conventional route, unfortunately. But you go to start signing stuff, and you start signing like your full name, and like it's letters you haven't composed in years. It's like, how do I write a K again in cursive, and how do I like merge these letters together? I have like to do a K, and anyway, it was tough. But that reminds me of like the language thing. So like right before we finished the previous section of the show, you were going into like the redefining of words and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, I don't want to go on a whole rant. But I'm interested to see where you were going with that.
Before you get to that, I need to say, I know, but this is related. Nico has spelled his name correctly.
Hey, watch out now.
So look. I actually had my name spelled. I changed it and edited it, and then I went to the settings on Zoom, and it took me to the website. And I'm like, why do I need to go to the website? So I just never went to the website. I logged back on, and I had to change my name again. So I think I'm going to just have to continuously just change my name because I don't care.
Look, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to eat while we do this because my wife brought me steak and a sweet potato while we were sitting here.
Yeah, I saw that sweet potato.
I'm going to go ahead and dig in.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead and get to that, and then we'll probably wrap up and let you go.
Can I screen share? It says it's disabled.
Sure.
Oh, let me fix that. Let me fix that. That's on me.
I'll talk with your mouth full.
Whatever.
That steak smells delicious.
Don't tell me what to do.
Am I being detained?
How do you do this again? Multiple. No, that's not it. Advanced sharing options. All participants. Here we go. You should be able to now.
I want to show you. Well, here, let me start with this one. Who here is a U.S. citizen?
Unfortunately, me.
I am. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Well, okay. Fuck, I don't know. Now, goddamn, I didn't know.
Do you have?
I know it was a pop quiz. Shit.
I've signed.
Who's got a passport?
I have a passport.
Yeah, I have a passport.
Okay, what do you think your passport says?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. Oh shit, man!
Nico's digging it up. You think it's gonna say that you're a U.S. citizen in there?
Oh shit! Here we go. Dan, about to drop the knowledge on people.
Illinois.
Look, hold on. Now you got me looking.
Dan, listen. Let me just say, while Nico's digging for that, I have to say, we've had a lot of guests on this show. I don't think there has been a guest on the show yet who has the potential to bring as many people to embracing anarchy or voluntarism or just removing themselves from government than you, just by the conversations that we've had so far. Sure. And all right, here we go.
All right. While he's digging that up, I'm going to show you this one. So this is United States Code Section 34. Actually, let me show you.
Legal. Yeah. What's the URL? Legal. What is that? I
This is law.cornell.edu.
Okay, there we go. All right.
So this is a university website. They have all the codes listed they have the entire federal code listed, and they have this really cool thing where like you can click on certain words to see what their definitions are.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I'll start with this one because this is what's interesting is when they define a lot of words, they say for this chapter, right? So it only applies to a certain chapter, not to an entire code. Mm-hmm. So this is 3402, requirement of withholding. In general, except as otherwise provided, every employer making payment of wages shall deduct and withhold upon such wages a tax, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Every employer making a payment of wages, right? So what's an employer and what's wages?
So
right?
Don't become an employer and don't pay wages.
Well,
right?
Don't work for an employer.
And don't work for an employer either.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you want to have a business where you're doing something and you have people working for you, they're not employees, you're not an employer, and they're not making wages.
That sounds so simple, but if you work for somebody, doesn't that automatically make you an employer or an employee, and doesn't that make them an employer?
Evidently not, right?
Okay, so let's go to section 3401, which is in the same chapter.
So where am I supposed to be going to? The back. There's a back.
Yeah, the back page that has all your personal information. Okay, wages defined. For the purpose of this chapter, the term wages means all remuneration other than fees paid to a public official for services performed by an employee for his employer, including blah, 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 blah. Okay, so wages is not just money paid to somebody for things. It's money that's paid to an employee by an employer. Well, let's see what an employee is defined as. And this will actually link down to, so you see I'm in the employee.
That is funny. It has taxes in the back of a traveling pamphlet. It has like information. This U.S. taxes, all citizens working and residing abroad are required to file and report their worldwide income. Consult IRS.
All citizens.
Yeah.
Does your passport say you're a U.S. citizen?
No.
Look for that. All right, but employee. This is what an employee is. For purpose of this chapter, which includes the withholding section in the code right next door, the term employee includes an officer. Are you an officer? An employee or elected official of the United States. Are you working for the United States? A state or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of any one or more of the foregoing. The term employee also includes the officer of a corporation. Marcus, you just got a new job. Are you an employee?
I am not an employee.
So why are they withholding your money? You're not an employee.
Because they're stealing shit from me.
Man, shout out to the Mexicans for coming up to work on cash business only and not be subject to this shit. You know?
Well, and like, so this is the
that's
trick.
One of the things I love about the whole like illegal immigration and that thing. It's like I understand people being like, oh, they're taking our jobs and it's making it harder and all that stuff. But I'm like, no, they're setting an example for how you should conduct business, cash only, and you're not paying any of that shit.
Yep.
They know what real freedom is.
Right.
So, okay. So, Nico, did you find where it says what your relationship is to the United States government in your passport?
I might be a tad bit slow, so I apologize. But
all right, it says you're a national. It says your nationality is United States, which grammatically
US
doesn't sound correct.
Not a.
Why doesn't it say you're a citizen?
Right. Nationality, national, United States of America. I'm not.
Why doesn't it say you're a citizen?
Because I'm black. No, I'm just. No.
All right.
Fucking racist.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Here's another one.
This fucking country is founded on racism.
The 14th Amendment. Everyone's a citizen because of the 14th Amendment, right? all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Are you subject to the jurisdiction of the United States?
No.
So jurisdiction is funny, right? Because a lot of people think like, well,
we are, right?
Oh,
I'm in the United States, but geography does not define jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like the government can't just take you to court and say, and no trial can begin until it's established that there is jurisdiction. Both the plaintiff and the court need to have jurisdiction over the defendant.
Okay.
So can the United States just take you to court for like anything? No. Well, they claim they can, right? Oh, possession of cannabis. But if you're not in possession of cannabis, they have no jurisdiction. So you need to violate a law and, you know, blah, 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 do something on their property, violate their property, violate their laws, or, you know, violate their ports or something like that in order to be subject to their jurisdiction. Or you can be born in Washington, D.C. or in one of the territories of the United States, and then you're subject to their jurisdiction, because those are not really considered like free country. Those are considered one giant piece of property of the United States. So this is why there's a difference between, and don't quote me on this because I'm still like, this shit is complicated, and like I even have trouble with this sometimes. But there's a difference between
obviously it's
nationality
they made it complicated
and citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And your passport is proof. And so therefore, if like are you subject to all of these rules that they put in place? I mean, look, I can make all these rules, right? And I can say like, you know, yeah, I just made these rules and I wrote them on a piece of paper, but do I actually have the capacity to enforce them is a completely different question. That's what jurisdiction is. And you have certain things. I want to look up the 9th Amendment real quick.
Dan, while you do that, do you know who Chris Rice is?
Chris Rice? I don't think so.
He's got he's got a show called Rice Crypto, but he gets into a lot of different subjects. One of the things he's been getting into is maritime law, and one of the and what you're breaking into right here is tied to that. And he's got a really interesting show. He's had Adam on a bunch of times. He had McAfee on, I think, the same amount of times. But you might reach out to him or have your people reach out to him, because I think you guys would have an interesting conversation based on this. He's a friend of mine. I was on his show a week and a half ago, talking about spirituality.
A month ago,
and he's been on here too. But great guy. But he kind of came into his own, like talking about cryptocurrency, but he's branched out and started talking about a lot of this same stuff that you're getting into now.
Hope everybody's watching what Dan is doing while this is.
I'm like, I was going to ask him.
It's good shit, man.
Is all of that come with DuckDuckGo? Because I need to start exploring the settings on them.
It'll come on Google too. But yeah, definitely. Like, I love this site. This site is really great. The Cornell Law School.
Cornell Law School. Wow.
And they're kind of like Wikipedia. They'll pop up and ask you for donations, and I have donated to them because I think they really have done an awesome job with this. Especially because this is one of the most difficult things. You read a law and it's like, well, that sounds like it applies to me, but it's like, if you don't know the definition of person,
right?
Oh, let me show you this one right here.
Well, if you've ever been involved in any kind of contract or anything like that, where they say from this point forward, such and such will be referred to as the buyer, and such will be the seller, and like at that, it just kind of like encapsulates everything before that. But if you don't know the before that, then it could apply to anyone if you interpret it that way, and if you start signing shit that signs you off onto it.
Check this one out. So everyone thinks if you don't file, you're going to go to jail, right? If you don't file your income tax. This is penalty for failure to file return. Any person required by this subpart to file a return. Wait, actually, am I in the right? No, sorry. This is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Which should be a convenience store.
Right.
Probably throw weed in
Be
there
more
for
convenient,
fun.
that's for damn sure.
Willful failure to file. Okay, there we go. Willful failure to file, return, supply information, or pay tax. Any person required under this title to pay any estimated tax or tax, blah, 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 blah. Any person. Well, that sounds like you, right? Any person. I'm required to pay a tax. Any person, right?
Right.
What's a person? So this is defined in, I'm surprised. Oh yeah, here. Subchapter A, crimes. Chapter 75 is crimes and other offenses, right?
Oh, I'm about to be a dangerous man. You shouldn't have given me this website.
The term
Careful,
person.
Nico. Stay safe.
The term person,
Wear your
as used
mask.
in this
No, I'm just
chapter, I want to emphasize this. Chapter 75 is crimes, other offenses, and forfeitures. And a person is defined in this chapter. So anything that has to do with crimes and forfeitures and everything else includes.
It's defined in the.
Includes
It's defined just for this chapter.
That's where the person
definition each chapter.
Yeah, each chapter has may have a different definition of person. In this particular chapter, person is defined as used in this chapter, includes an officer or employee of a corporation, or a member or employee of a partnership who, as such officer, employee, or member, is under duty to perform the act in respect with which the violation recurs. So if there is no corporation and you're just an individual, and they claim that you are supposed to file a tax, you cannot be held under this particular code right here that says any person required to pay, any person under this title. Remember, person is defined for the chapter, but they're talking about the entire title. So if you're somewhere in the entire title of the United States Internal Revenue Code, if you're supposed to pay this tax, it only applies if you are a person as defined within this chapter.
In that chapter.
And I'm guessing that when they bring you into court, they will say, amongst what they will say is, are you in some way say, are you a person? And you will say, yes, I'm a person, if you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And because then
and
when
they use this term U.S. person. When you on the W-4, you'll see this. Are you a U.S. person? And it says U.S. person includes a citizen and some other stuff. But a U.S. why don't they just say, are you a U.S. citizen? Or like, no, it's very specific. U.S. person, and I can't get into explaining that one.
Well, can I ask you a question about that? So when you're looking at so I work for a corporation. Let's say I quit this job or some other way, you lose it or whatever, end up doing something independently. And then I go to try to sell stuff on eBay, or I try to sell stuff as an Amazon affiliate, or I go to try to sell stuff with PayPal or anything like that. A lot of those companies end up you're kind of,
they want your social or something.
Yeah, they're seizing the electronic space too, to make it to where even if you try to go that route, it makes it more difficult. So what's the way to navigate that?
They're never going to withhold anything. If anything, what they'll do is they'll report to the IRS with a 1099 of some sort. Okay. And what you can do, so I've heard.
But then if you're not an employee making wages, and if you're not an employer employing people who are making wages, then at that point, that part doesn't really apply, right? Like that's from what we've been talking about.
So that employer thing only really relates to the withholding itself.
The withholding. Okay. Right. So when it's failure to pay or anything like that, then it comes under this, whether you're a person under the definition of
right. And the whole fucking tax code is twisted like this.
Yeah.
But there's
the whole government.
It basically means if you don't know what we're talking about, pay us. So that's basically what it is. And if you do, well, you don't have to.
It's the same thing as what they do with bills. This is just another example of what they do with bills. They make it so complicated that a contract, let's say, Chad, you and I wanted to trade something. We made a contract, and let's say I was going to give you a piece of plastic, and I was going to sell it to you for $10. My contract with you would say, I'm going to give you this piece of plastic for $10. It's not going to have 20 pages, and it's not going to have all this bullshit. The reason they do that is so they can. It's the same modus operandi. They're burying bullshit so they can rip you off. because again, these are no abilities. They don't have any other ability to do anything except for lie to you, cheat you, steal from you, and murder you. That's all they do.
All right. So what do we have? What do you got?
So this one's still a little bit mysterious to me, but this one shows up a lot. Trade or business. Trade or business is a single legal term. So whenever you see trade or business together, this does not mean go look up the word trade and go look up the word business. This is the definition.
It's one or the other. No, this is like they have defined this phrase.
Treat this as one word.
Yeah, gotcha.
One hyphenated word. But this is what's interesting about this one is they're using a word to define itself.
No,
that's always good practice. But that's what the state does. What's the definition of a state?
And this is interesting too. If you look up any state that has an income tax and you go look into the state income tax, it will say, unless otherwise noted, every definition in this income tax, you can refer to the definition made in the Internal Revenue Code of the United States of America. So every state that has an income tax is really a piggyback on top of the federal income tax. So if you're not subject to the federal income tax, you're not subject to the state income tax. Damn. Okay, check this one out.
Copy pasta before there was copy pasta.
Right. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So basically what that means is, if you say, well, I have a right to work for somebody and exchange my labor for money, and somebody says, well, where is that in the Constitution? You point them to this. Because there is nothing in the Constitution that says you have a right to own your labor. But there is this right here that says just because we listed out a bunch of shit and we left something out does not mean you don't have that right.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
And then I want to point you back to the Declaration of Independence, which started this whole thing.
Right. That and the 10th Amendment were just basically put in there so that the fucking anti-federalists wouldn't get all jiggy, because Patrick Henry was having a fucking coronary at the writing of the Constitution anyway. If you ever get a chance, Dan, to check out what Patrick Henry has to say to the Virginia legislature about the ratification of the Constitution, I strongly suggest it because he had a crystal ball and saw what was coming.
Yeah.
So what we got here?
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, unalienable rights. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So just because they don't list it out in the Constitution does not mean you do not have these rights.
Right. Yeah.
These are your rights.
Right.
So whenever somebody says, well, where is that in the Constitution? Point them to the 9th Amendment.
Yeah, for sure.
They can read and understand it, which is...
Unfortunately, though...
Right.
Yeah.
Hey!
Unfortunately, though, I tend to, again, agree with Spooner that the Constitution has either justified, and this is paraphrasing, but is either justified what's happened or been powerless to prevent it. So, again, I get, people get so divided about, well, the Constitution's here to protect us, or let's throw it away, or whatever, they try to get it into these two teams.
Right.
Where I stand with the Constitution is at the time it was fantastic and did a whole lot more for the American people compared to what was going on in Europe or what was going on in Africa or China or all these other places. But that doesn't mean that it is set in gold and Jesus is going to come down and bless it with a special hand.
Right. We still need to protect it. And that's the thing, but that comes through education. We need to know what it's about in order to protect it, because ultimately, I agree. First of all, it's not perfect. I disagree with some people that will say it doesn't have a right to exist, because yes, it doesn't have a right to exist if it's violating our rights without our consent, but it does have a right to exist as just a contract among states. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But when that contract among the states gives them the quote unquote authority to violate our rights, well, that's when it's wrong.
Well, in some ways, it goes back, like Mark Twain in the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court points out that there was a quote unquote constitution in Britain before our constitution in this country, but it wasn't a written constitution. It was an understanding of law between people. And
social contract.
Right. It is a social contract in essence, but the Constitution is no better. Just because you write down the social contract doesn't mean that it's any bigger or better just because some guy with a fancy pen wrote it down.
Right.
It is about those rights.
I'm not a party to the United States Constitution. I'm not bound to its rules. I'm not bound to its restrictions. I don't have to follow any of them.
Right.
Because I didn't sign it.
Right.
Right.
But the people who are operating under it are bound to it. Now, like Lysander said, you can't grant rights that you don't have, right? Mm-hmm. So if the Constitution does grant a right to somebody that the founders never had the authority to grant, then that's where you could argue that's invalid. But at the same time, okay, let's say I have a business and you have a business and we come together and we write an agreement on paper. And this agreement says neither of our businesses is ever allowed to sell socks. Okay. So if I start selling socks, then you can sue me because I broke the terms of the contract, right?
Right. And I can start selling socks too.
Right. And it's totally legitimate because we both agreed to it. But that doesn't mean Nico can't sell socks because he never signed it.
Right.
Love socks, man. All kinds.
Socks forever.
Yeah, so like this is kind of the understanding we have to have, and this is why I pointed out in the Constitution there's two taxes that they allow. One is a tax on the states, which the states entered voluntarily into an agreement with the federal government. Now, of course, the states are going to rob us to pay those taxes, and that's another story. But assuming they have some voluntary way to raise the money, they can pay those taxes. The United States government can impose them because the state agreed.
To become
the other tax is a privilege tax, which is if I want to do business with the federal government, I'm going to pay a tax. Okay, fine. So I've decided I'm not going. The problem with that is, like I said, if you want to use the federal government's ports, you're going to pay a tax because you're using their ports. Okay, fine. I'm just going to find a beach where there's no federal government and I'm going to import my rum from the Caribbean island there. Oh, no, sorry. That's when the federal agents come down and say, you're not allowed to do that here. You have to go through our port. Well, that's a monopoly. Yeah. And so now you're forcing me to use your service. I don't want to use the privilege of your port. I just want to dock my boat up on land, or I'll swim the bottles to shore myself because I don't want to pay the tax.
Right.
Then I should be able to do that. And so that's where I would say
country.
Exactly. That's where I would say that they don't have the right to do that. So yes, but you're absolutely right too. Like it hasn't prevented anything, but no piece of paper is ever going to prevent any crime. And even an agreement among the four of us and everybody else who's listening to say that it should be illegal to steal money from people does not prevent people from stealing money.
For sure.
So like we as an entire society, and check this out. I came up with this idea. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, but we live in a democracy and we voted for this system. So if you don't like it, just vote harder and change it. Well, I voted for representatives. I voted for a president. I voted for a sheriff. But I didn't get to vote for whether or not the system exists. And we have, in the Texas Constitution and in the Declaration of Independence, it says, if you don't like the government, you have a right to alter or abolish it.
That should be on every ballot.
Exactly. So I want to start a petition that goes on that says every year, and here's the beauty of it, every year or every election, they have to have something on the ballot that says you get to vote for whoever you want, and at the bottom, should we keep the government or should we get rid of it? And you get to vote on that. Now, here's the thing. Any of the legislators or politicians or anything else, that's stupid. We don't want to add that. They're going to fight it. They're going to fight it. Why are they going to fight it? Are they worried that more than 50% of the people are going to say, yes, we should get rid of it?
Right.
And if that's what they're worried about.
No, and that might be a really good marketing tool to show people like, hey, look, why are these people so up in arms about voting to keep their jobs or not?
Right.
When you hate them all anyway.
I get that it's a different mechanism, but what you're getting at is exactly what Adam was trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
But I think to
same
that
idea.
And you don't
with
have
the
to waste your
Declaration.
vote to do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Everybody gets
Plays on the
it's an up or
subconscious.
down. It's an up or down
You
vote.
can vote for Trump and to abolish the government.
Right.
Oh, looks like we got more than 50% wanting to abolish it. Sorry, Trump, you had your run.
Yeah.
Then you go break it. Then
Try again
with that
next year.
breakdown. So conversation's sake, say if 50% of the populace says, yeah, we don't want this, then where would it trickle from there?
Then when the ATF comes kicking down my door to say you have unregistered guns, say, sorry, you have no authority. We voted you guys out.
Right. At the end of the day, these are the ideas that that we were talking about earlier. These are the things. This is why it's important, Dan, that you run for president.
Right.
Is
No,
because
you gotta have all of this stuff out there for people to listen to and to kind of assimilate to their own and synthesize into their own consciousness and try to understand, like, okay, what does this mean to me? But so really at the end of the day, though, if Marcus and Dan can't sell socks and Chewbacca needs socks, who's gonna sell him socks if Nico doesn't sell him socks?
Well,
okay, right.
me and Chewie go back
curious.
a long time. But
Yeah,
And he
if
can
the
charge
sock
as
fits,
much as he
must
wants
acquit.
because he's the only business in town selling socks.
that's
right.
right.
And if the sock fits, you must acquit. That's all I have to say.
So Dan, we've kept you a little bit longer than our extra hour. I want to thank you for coming on to Aquarian Anarchy. This has been one of the, and what's funny is it's almost getting now to where this is repetitive. This has been one of the better interviews that we've had the pleasure of doing. One of the beauties of running around this country with Adam that I got to meet a bunch of really cool people and got to, get to know them enough to where I can say, hey, Dan, you want to come on my show and talk for a while?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And
yes.
I'm really grateful too, because I've been a big fan, big admirer of yours for a while, and I would not have even known how to
picked up another admirer.
How to make that request without feeling like I was just being a total tool. So I appreciate
man. Inbox
that.
me anytime. I'm not royalty. Loyalty, not royalty.
Right on. Well, like you said, no matter what happens, we are on the same team. And my loyalties lay with Adam Kokesh. But if he decides not to run, and he decides that maybe he needs maybe a vice presidential candidate, there might have been somebody cheerleading that idea. I don't know who they might have been.
I'm a big fan of mashups. Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, I will support you in running, and I will definitely be a cheerleader for all of the beautiful ideas that you share with the world. So I want to thank you for coming on Aquarian Anarchy. We will publish this. It should come out around noon tomorrow. And the after hour, which is what we just finished, will come out on Saturday. Hopefully later on in the year, we can have you back on and get an update of what you're doing and what's going on. Just know that you have some fans out here.
Absolutely.
With the three of us. And we appreciate everything you're doing. And keep fighting that fight, because taxation is theft. And I want to end.
Damn right it is.
That's right.
Yes.
I want to end with one quote. And this is how we will start. This is how the initial episode will start. It will have Lysander Spooner. So these villains who call themselves governments well understand that their power rests primarily upon money. With money, they can hire soldiers, and with soldiers, extort money. And when their authority is denied, the first use they always make of money is to hire soldiers to kill or subdue all who refuse them more money. I appreciate you getting that message out. Keep preaching, brother.
Yeah. like, subscribe, get on the Patreon, and go to Dan's website too, and check out his content and subscribe to his channel. And any of you have your Twitter. What's your Twitter handle again? It's
Dan for Texas.
Dan for Texas.
FOR.
That's right. That's F4. Yeah. Okay. Dan for Texas at Dan for Texas. Go and grab on there, because it's we've got to combine ideas. We've got to team up and fight this beast from every angle possible. And anyway, I really appreciate you coming on. And I know Nico was saying you got a new fan with him.
Yeah,
too.
most definitely.
Yeah.
I'll be tuning in, sir, because you dropped a lot of knowledge on just like law, and that's something that not that many people know about. A lot of people don't know the double word and double meaning, and oh wait, this word means a different word for this chapter. So that's something that I for example, and a given fact that you just went down that little
rabbit hole. Yeah.
So the knowledge is beautiful, and I appreciate for what you pass on to not just me, but to the masses and the media and people who watch this. Are all grateful, and I'll speak for them because being illiterate, a little backstory, but I had trouble time reading. So, picking up on things, like reading a lot more, and especially things of this nature, and not how to being screwed. I mean, granted, I'm a young black man with law behind him is scary, but it doesn't matter of color or anything of that matter. But in all general sense, the understanding of law is beauty, and I appreciate that and other things of that nature.
Truly.
Dan, you get the last word,
sure.
brother.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Can I make a quick plug?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was trying to plug for you, but I don't know exactly how to do it best.
Yeah, so my website is danforfreedom.com if you want to check out the gubernatorial campaign, which we're starting to ramp up soon. But also taxationistheft.info, where you can get these really awesome hats. And we're giving away the amazing Opener 3000 there, which, because of the government's regulations on shapes, yes, you didn't know it, there's a regulation on shapes. And it's just a piece of metal in a certain shape. So if you happen to win this amazing Opener 3000, which opens all kinds of bottles and cans and containers and everything else, we unfortunately have to ship it to you through an FFL dealer because of its shape. That's how stupid this is. Yeah, it's just a piece of metal.
Is it made out of toe clippers? No, I'm just talking with you. No, look, hey man, that's awesome, and I again really appreciate it. And since it's Thanksgiving tomorrow, this is one to definitely be thankful for, and it will be uploading the first show will be uploading tonight, so people will be able to see that tomorrow at their leisure, and then the other one will be later on this weekend when everybody's hopefully enjoying their turkey coma. So. Wake up and get
icing
dialed into this
the black
stuff.
Eyes off of
right after their political discussions at the Thanksgiving table about the election and whatever the hell else. Somebody said I saw this one. It was great. It was like you should definitely bring up politics at Thanksgiving dinner. It'll save you a lot of money on Christmas presents. I have more holiday tips coming. Just follow me for more holiday tips. I was like, God damn, that's good.
He was actually in prison with what's his name that ran for president with us?
McAfee?
No, the crazy Trumpy kind of guy.
I know who you're talking about.
I think of his name.
Talked about the Jacobers, the Mother Jacobers.
Yeah, that guy.
Mark Whitney.
Mark Whitney.
He was in prison with Erwin Schiff, and so I was fucking excited just to shake his hand. But I had been following this stuff, but
I'm glad you said
never
the fucking
really
shake
got
his hand, because that's the only way you can say it, right?
Shake that Mother Jacobers hand. Because I had been following this stuff, I had been reading it, but every time I was like, okay, look, I had somebody's attention. I was like, okay, look, I'm going to prove it. And I'm going to start digging through these codes. And then right there it was, oh, every person has to pay a tax. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't get it yet. And
wow.
It just, but then once I read Dave Champion's book, he really, really broke it down. And I actually have that on my to-do list to read it again.
See, and I've always seen Dave Champion's videos, and I've been like, I mean, I get it, and that sounds cool and all, but it sounds like you're just making shit up. And now that like you've taken us through and like shown, because it's one thing when somebody's just like face fronting, and that's all you see on the video.
Right. I'm going to show you how to not pay taxes.
Like, yeah, look, this is illegal, and they're screwing you over. I'm like, yeah, okay, guy, cool. But when they arrest me, like, I can't call you to like come bail me out, you know? So like, I don't know. But like when I look at this stuff, so that's why I was saying, like, I've kind of even prefaced what you were saying.
There's
like,
actually,
hey, y'all need to go do your own research, but you know, let Dan kind of point you in the right direction.
Right. So Joe Bannister, have you heard of America, Freedom to Fascism?
No.
Okay, check this out. It was the guy who directed Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, legit Hollywood producer, goes and makes a documentary about how the government works. Totally got derailed when he realized there's no such thing as the income tax. So he interviewed the heads of the IRS, like all these other crazy people. Ron Paul's in it. John, it's on YouTube for free. You can get it.
What's it called?
America, Freedom to Fascism.
Freedom to Fascism. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And one of the guys in there, Joe Bannister, who I've been in contact with, I've had him on my show a couple times. He used to be a special agent for the IRS. And he started hearing, like, his whole story is in the late 90s. He started hearing on the radio these crazy people saying there's no law that says the average American has to pay income tax. So him being an IRS agent went to go look it up to prove them wrong, couldn't prove them wrong, went to his boss and said, hey, there's no law that says we're ripping all these people off. And his boss says, well, you can quit if you want. So he quit and he stopped paying taxes. He stopped filing and he started fighting the IRS and sharing this information. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, his reach has not been that great. But he has been sued by the IRS many times, and he's won most of the cases. There's like a couple like technicality bullshits that he lost, but he's not paying income tax. He's not filing, and the reason they go after him is just because he's spreading the information as much as he can.
Right. You worry about
the
that?
Same reason Erwin Schiff went to not really.
No. Okay.
The way, well, one, I'm in Mexico. So there's that. But
you're about to try to run for governor of Texas, though, right? So you gotta be.
Well, I am a little bit worried, but at the same time, like, this is the way
I worry the shit out of it. I'm not even gonna lie. I fucking worry. Like
in the 70s,
trying to do that shit.
Erwin Schiff went to prison. Plenty of other people went to prison, right? The thing is, they all tried to like, okay, yeah, I'm going to, let's use the rocket example. We're gonna shoot rockets up and go to the moon. Well, the first few rockets that they shot up blew up and like everybody died, right? Now they shoot rockets into space all the time. We got satellites up there. We got people landing on the moon. We got rovers going to Mars. We got all this. The laws of physics didn't change, and neither did the tax code. And so now that we understand so much more about it, and here's the thing, the tax code is 1 million pages that people can never understand. When Erwin Schiff started this shit in the 70s, there was no Google. So for him to he had to actually read through the law books and make notes and try to figure all this shit out without a computer, without any kind of search, right? So the people running the IRS who actually understood this shit because they created it were able to even with him just totally fuck him over. But now that people like Dave Champion and others have continued to do this research, it's easier now. Now there's also another guy, the Freedom Law School. This guy, Behrman, Montade, something like that. He's actually Iranian. He's not even a U.S. citizen, but he initially in the 90s put up I think he started at $10,000, a $10,000 bounty for anybody who could show the law that says you have to pay income tax. Nobody collected it, so he raised it to 100 grand. Now it's 300 grand. And there's actually 3 parts to it. One is you have to show the law that says you have to pay income tax. You have to show how you can file a return without violating your own 4th and 5th Amendment rights. And there was another one. There's another part to it. Nobody's been able to claim it. He actually has a program that he'll sell you, and it's pretty pricey. But I'm considering doing it for myself. But basically, he will be your legal counsel if the shit hits the fan.
Oh, really?
And he doesn't pay.
How pricey are we talking?
Like, I think 4,000 is like the top tier.
That's not bad.
It's, I mean, considering
Like,
you're going to save $20,000 from the IRS,
Right.
not.
That's what I was like, wait a minute.
Like every year too? Like, I mean, so it's 4,000 a year?
No, it's not. I don't know how.
Or is it 4,000 one time? Because I'm saying, like, if it's 4,000 one time, I am down. Let's go. Like, I just got to figure out what I'm going to do to get out of this job and like start making money on the side somehow with other shit. Like, I got some other things going, but I don't have enough to be able to afford these expensive ass people that I support.
Calling my belly, and my belly's calling food. But before I go, what's the name of the thing on YouTube?
Oh, America.
Freedom to fascism.
Freedom to fascism.
Freedom. Okay.
Fascism is on there. Freedom to fascism.
It's so sad. I was on YouTube, and I tried America.
Freedom to fascism. Oh, you.
I had typed it in backwards or something along the lines of that, and then a whole bunch of nothing but Trump thumbnails popped up. I'm like, huh? What?
Here, hold on.
No, I got it now. It was 9 years ago that it was released.
Sounds about right.
Yep. Yeah, I got it.
It's like I think it's like an hour or 2 hours, maybe.
Yeah, it's like an hour 47 minutes.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm about to digest that.
And man, I was furious when I learned about the Libertarian Party, and I was like, you guys have never heard of these guys? And apparently, a lot of the guys in that documentary and a lot of the guys that I was talking about have been chased out of the Libertarian Party, and they feel, they feel like they were being ridiculed by the party itself. And that kind of plays into the whole thing about like, maybe the party is actually just, controlled opposition and that sort of shit.
Or like Konkin said, it's a big energy magnet to suck your life in. Huh?
Who?
Was it Sam Konkin? Yeah, who said that?
Sam Konkin.
Yeah, who said that the LP is basically a big energy and passion and resource magnet that just churns that stuff up. And instead of you doing your stuff that will help you be free, it just consumes you and
so you can't
keeps you idle. So you can't do that stuff.
That's why I recommend people do their shit outside of the Libertarian Party, because the party itself is a fucking waste of energy. And like, what pisses me off so much is all these, we need to grow the party. And it's like, okay, we found a person who's interested in liberty. Let's drag them off to a convention where they'll be bored to death for 3 days straight. And then completely be like, fuck you guys, this is boring as hell, I'm out of here.
Well, so not only that, but like,
or literally tell me to leave.
Right. Well, so you got that. What I got was, I'm like, this is amazing. I can't believe.
Love you, brother. Nicholas.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Nico's hanging out.
Yeah. See you later, man.
I got to meet Adam in New Orleans, end of 2017. And I was just like, so pumped. And then like, he's like, hey man, like if you want to, do some stuff with our, with our team or whatever, and so he didn't even have a campaign at that point. He didn't file until like January, and that's when he got arrested 16th. In Texas or whatever. Yeah, it was my son's birthday. And so like then I don't remember what it was. They were like, we need volunteers to go through such and such some stuff or whatever. And I was like, all right, I can try. And I went through the whole thing. And they needed like 5 people to do it. And I was like, it took me like 2 days to finish the whole thing. So they're like, this guy, we need to like bring him on to be part of, and that's when I met Marcus. They were like, you need to come on the conference calls. And so I was like, this is awesome. Like all these great people. I can't believe I finally found a home, the Libertarian Party. All these people are amazing. And everybody's like me. We're all trying to fight for freedom and everything. And then I got on Facebook in the delegates group and I was like, oh, everyone not only isn't on the same team, they're literally like trying to ruin your life and the reputation of like calling you all sorts of evil, horrible things just because they disagree with you and you're not supporting their person. Like, it's not even like, and I was like, oh my God, look what this is. Like, y'all are like making shit up to try to ruin people's careers and their like relationships with people and everything else for
look up
And I call it I think they're LARPing as Game of Thrones characters. They're not even really fucking doing anything. They're just LARPing as Game of Thrones characters, and they think that it's worth destroying someone's life over.
Right.
What were you saying, Dan?
Check out the CIA's Guide to Sabotage. It was
I've
declassified a year or two ago.
Shit.
But what's interesting, this little gem right here I've been reading is it's really interesting.
Okay.
They say democracy, and they kind of mean it in the progressive term, but it works if you replace it with anarchy. It works just the same. But it basically talks about how to overthrow the state using peaceful, nonviolent terms. Because if you try to do it violently, you're going to be outnumbered. But if you and as they're talking about but if you can convince people who work for the state to sympathize with you by being nice to them, right, instead of getting in the cops' faces and calling them pigs and all this shit, then you get them to then they'll continue to work for the government, but they'll basically do what the CIA's sabotage handbook says, which is to be completely ineffective. And so the government loses power, and then you're able to spread information and get more people on board with this idea. But you have to do it. And one thing that you have to do, which is I know this is kind of like my
Fabian anarchism or something. Just about.
It's
almost.
It's like it's a practical strategy.
I'm just saying that's what the Fabian socialists do. They're like let's just slowly creep into, and that's all incrementalism. It's this way of kind of infiltrating slowly.
Yeah,
it works.
That's what
they're doing a shit ton better job than we are.
That's what Rothbard said to do. He was like, the fucking communists know what the fuck they're doing. He was like, they slowly just.
I will say this though. All right, so let me make my argument for the opposite of that, and why as an idealist I have a hard time with that. Okay, when you are evil, okay, if you want to poison someone's water, you can just trickle poison in slowly. And you're okay with, at whatever point they die, you kill whoever it is that's drinking that water. If you want to unpoison people, you don't wait until you've diluted the poison enough. You want to get all the fucking poison out of the water. And so I have it's been hard for me to just be no, I'll just drip water in slowly. And whoever dies along the way for drinking the poisoned water, we're getting there eventually. I have a hard time with that. And so that's why it's been difficult for me to do the kind of that Fabian route of doing
poison. It. I mean, if you look at it as you're poisoning the state with freedom.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Then I think the same thing might apply.
I can get down with that.
Because you're absolutely right? If we're still all dying, it's hard to put up the fight. But if you can cut off their poison supply and start poisoning them.
Right.
Yeah, and what's funny is I find truth in anything that I'm doing, and I've been watching, because I was never into The Walking Dead, but I didn't have a fucking thing to watch.
Watching it?
Yeah.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, I know. And when where I'm at in the series is when they're just the hilltop everybody's gone to the hilltop now. They just fucked over Negan and all of that. But many of the things that they're talking about.
You started at season 1 and you're already there?
Yeah, well, yeah.
God damn, you fucking binge like a motherfucker. Shit.
Well, it's all I can do at lunch. I watch an hour every fucking day.
Oh my God.
That's
still really fast though.
Yeah,
shit.
that's
had that job for that long. You're fucking lying. You're watching a season a weekend. I know.
Right.
It's season 10 already.
I know. So yeah, my wife's annoyed as shit. But no. What you're talking about? Yeah, what you're talking. But that is the whole. Standing up to them in that moment, really Negan for me has become the state. That is the state, and and so I put those symbol sets together.
Did you see the part with the gun registration?
No.
Yeah, wait till that comes up. Then you'll be like, yeah, that's the state.
Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, Dan, what you're talking about is exactly, if you go back, especially recently in the last few episodes that we've done, what we've been encouraging people to do is be the smiling face of voluntarism, to go out and slap a smile on, be the good person. Don't be the person out in the streets with the Molotov cocktail. Be the person smiling and saying, I know a better way.
Yeah, we are reclaiming, we're sticking a flag in the ground, and we are standing our ground on anarchy as being not a bad thing, as being peaceful and a place to seek refuge.
Yeah. And one of the things that I like that came out of that conversation that Chad's talking about is I've been using the term anarch. And I didn't even know it was an old term until I looked it up, because an anarchist is somebody who practices anarchy. Well, we can't fucking practice anarchy. We can't do it.
Yeah,
but an anarch, right? Yeah, an anarch is someone who is self-owned, someone who is their own king, who is in charge of their own life, who is self-owned, who is self-ruled. And so, and I didn't even know that's an old term until I looked it up, but that's what I've been doing. And what I like about it is it's more of a bridge. Like I say that the Hoteps are anarchs because they believe they are self-ruled. And it, even though it sounds the same as being an anarchist, it doesn't have the negative connotation. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you have monarch, oligarch, and then anarch. So we're that person who is acting in that. I'm not trying to rule over anyone else, but I'm not letting anyone else rule over me. I'm ruling myself.
You know what I've found is a pretty good strategy. And I use this really well when so people come up to me like, well, are you pro-life or pro-choice? It's really like, so those terms even are loaded, right?
Right. Yep.
Because they're extremely polar, and you can be like, well, no, I'm just.
And they're not even well defined either. That's the thing.
Exactly.
They're on purpose. They're intentionally ill defined so that you say stuff or apologize for stuff you're not supposed to apologize for, or condemn stuff you're not supposed to condemn.
So what I usually do is when they ask me that, I refuse to answer, and I start saying, well, I'm neither. And then they're like, so like mentally,
how does that work? You can't be neither.
They're trying to put me in a box, right? They're
exactly.
trying to put me in one of these boxes. And if I say I'm neither, they're like, oh, what do you mean? You have to be one or the other. And then I start explaining.
Gives you a chance to make a discussion.
Exactly. And now they're forced to listen, because they're like, I'm going to listen to everything he says, and I know he's going to slip up and say something that tells me if he's pro-life or pro-choice. Right. And I just talk about, well, let's say whatever side you're on, like what's the point? You're gonna vote and get 51%, and then the government's gonna say, okay, we're gonna pass a law, and then it's either gonna be banned or it's gonna be legal. And then, but what happens when it slips to 49% and then it reverses? And I start talking about so this idea of just like voting to create an arbitrary law doesn't really change anything. Really, what you should be changing is the opinion of the people, because we shouldn't have the government writing these laws. Instead, we should treat it like a murder, right? We don't have special laws that say, oh, you murdered a man, or you murdered a woman, or you murdered an old person, or you murdered a 14-year-old. Doesn't matter. It's still murder, right? And you put it in front of a jury and you say, this person violently killed this person. And the jury is going to sit there and say, yep, guilty. But if you do that with an unborn child, what's the jury going to say? They might be divided 4 and 4, or 8 and whatever, 6 and 6, and 51%.
Yeah, 12, yeah.
You're not going to get a conviction. So if you really want to get a conviction with this, the problem is not what the law is. The problem is what the people think. And so you need to start by changing what the people think, instead of using the government as a tool for enforcing your opinion. Instead, we need to have a discussion and figure out which one is right. And maybe there's a gray area, maybe there's not, but we need to have that discussion. And we don't have that discussion by taking one side and fixating on this is the only way. So then they're just kind of like, oh, wow, that's really interesting points all around. And they're like interested, like, yeah, I guess the government shouldn't be deciding, because, and they're like, man, that just blows their fucking minds. And usually I
is that jury thing an original Dan Behrmanism?
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good. I dig it.
Basically the common law.
Yeah, no,
the common law argument to murder.
That's what we do.
You
for
don't
murder,
need.
Right.
Yeah, like if you kill someone with a hammer or you kill someone with a knife, in common law, none of that matters. The fact is that you took somebody's life. Yeah,
right.
That's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, I like it. And it's I've been using, on a very similar note, I've been using kind of Rothbard's argument that that it may be morally wrong, but it is ethically right. So you have to, and the reason is because you have to. He goes through and defines what what a human being is and how you do that, and So ethically, it becomes okay to to kill an unborn child, because ethically it's right, because that's not a self-sustaining human being yet. It can't exist outside of the womb. But it is morally wrong if you believe that will become a human being, because that is squashing the potential of a potential human being. So it would be morally wrong, the difference between morality and ethics being emotional versus reason. And so, but I like your explanation much better.
Well,
better, yeah.
This gets into like a philosophical, where do rights come from and who's human and why do humans have special rights that animals don't have. But what if you had a 40-year-old person who could not, I'm not sure the definition you use, who could not self-sustain their own life because they're mentally handicapped, or they don't have
or an invalid or whatever. Yeah.
Do you have the right to just kill them? And some people would say yes if they're in a vegetative state. Others would say no if they're at least ambulatory. It's a gray area for everyone. And ultimately what it comes down to is feelings, right? No, if you kill that person, that looks like a human to me. I would be sad if you killed that person, and therefore it's wrong and immoral.
And so then it still goes back to your jury example. It still ultimately goes back to your jury example, where if you do kill that person, now the jury looks at it and says, God, you're like what's his Terry Schiavo or whatever, we're like, okay, so do you want to subject yourself to a jury? Why don't you just let her parents, like, if they want to like keep her alive and just let her be with her parents. But like I was listening to somebody was talking about how once you get married, like in a legal sense, in America anyway, who was it? It was Saul, I think. The other day he was in the hospital for something or something like that, and like his mom was there. I don't remember who it was. Anyway, the mom was there. Like somebody was there. Their mom was there, and the doctor came in and talked to his wife instead of his mom. And it was like, because it's at the point that you get married, your old family doesn't matter anymore, and it moves to your legal partner at that point. And so
they have this whole like hierarchy of who's like it's like the whole next of kin thing. And I think it's actually like it goes all the way back to common law. It might be codified now, but like it goes all the way to common law of like, okay, if your wife's dead and your mom's dead and your third son and your first cousin, and like it's fucking crazy.
Your oldest brother and your sister, and then
we had to learn that shit in funeral school.
Yeah, there you
go.
Because who you could talk to and tell them about whatever, or who you went to for arrangements and shit.
Well, and also where things break down. Like for instance, the mom can be throwing a hissy fit. It doesn't fucking matter if they're married. Not a big goddamn bit. Mom, wife is in charge, period. It doesn't matter if he's got 40 fucking kids from 60 different marriages. Doesn't matter. He's does not matter. If there's a wife, you're dealing with the wife.
Yeah, when my grandmother died, so my grandfather died a few years before her, and then when she died, she had 11 kids. And dude, it was crazy, like, because you had some people who were like, look, I don't want the responsibility, and so it's like kind of the shit just started rolling downhill, where who was going to be in charge of stuff, and there were some fights,
but all that shit goes out the window if you have like a will and a power of attorney.
Right, exactly, because then you have superseded that stuff.
That's actually another one. I'm married, but not with any government.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I've got to jump off of here.
Yeah, same here. And we kept going way beyond his time.
But I do need to know, Chad, new mic, how did it sound?
Great. Yeah,
Okay.
excellent.
Just
yeah,
wanted to make sure everything was set and was working out technically well.
Yeah, and one of
Dan,
the things that's
again,
cool is that we can talk at the same time and you can hear both of us instead of
right.
like your speakers clipping your mic whenever somebody else is talking.
For sure. All right, Dan, again, thank you. Stay in touch.